Hi everyone. Thanks for joining our Coffee with MindMagine. Uh, I hope that Monique is able to iron out a technical issue. In the meantime, let me do a little bit of an introduction. Um, we choose to have customer engagement as a topic in this Coffee with MindMagine because we are seeing that a lot of customers are seeing the attention of customer engagement, but also start realizing that the shift in customer behavior really means that we need to take a total different approach to engaging with our customers. We see elements in digitization, AI, multi-channel communications, and things like that, that really creates a total different approach of engaging with our customers. Today, I'm being joined by Monique Jansen and Tim Haslett. Monique is a customer experience strategist with over 30 years of experience internationally and is passionate about customer-centric approaches and has done so in multiple industries. Tim is a strategic and commercial transformational leader, also has over 30 years of experience and comes from a more commercial background. Tim, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Certainly, it's a broad topic you've got here that we're going to be diving into today in just 45 minutes.
Yeah, we try to keep it to 45 minutes. And at the end of our chat, I will show a slide in which in which you guys can actually contact us. So there will be a link for Monique, a link for Tim, and a link for us, for ourselves. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Yeah. Tim, I guess while Monique is ironing out her connection challenges, maybe you should give it a start.
Sure.
In your opinion, what are the most common challenges in creating a good and meaningful customer engagement?
Okay. I think first up, you've got to be clear about what you actually want to achieve. So an organization has to be clear on its goals, whether it be a commercial entity, whether it be a not-for-profit or a government agency. They need to be very clear on how they want to be engaging with their customers and what level of intimacy they're going to develop. And I think the other challenge is really so many organizations just don't know their customers. And that can happen in a few ways, right? That can happen because an organization's leadership or there is a culture within the organization of simply not listening to those who are on the coalface, those who are in touch with customers, who are in touch with partners, in touch with suppliers, and all of these channels can give information and insights as to how connected how connected you are to your customers and what kind of experience you're going to be giving them, and also, you know, even what channels are available for customers to give feedback. And that's something that it seems to be happening more and more with automation. With the increase of automation, there are fewer human channels or effective channels for even electronically relaying feedback. And it's just bizarre how, you know, I think there's a few examples here in Malaysia where, you know, things have become, you know, digitalized. We've lost the human touch, but they haven't built in a method of relaying feedback. So how on earth can you be customer centric and give a great customer experience if you're not even connecting with them and not allowing those channels?
So yeah, in my experience, what I see with companies that are approaching me is that indeed what you said, there's a lot of digitization going on, but it's not used in a very effective way. And frequently I get the feeling that companies are extremely busy in trying to engage with the customer at such a level that it becomes annoying.
That's right. Yeah, I totally agree. And even things like knowing your customer, how well do you actually know your customer? I've been living in Malaysia for 17 years. I have utilities that I've been connected to for 17 years, and yet I still get messages in a language that is not familiar to me.
Yeah, yeah,
And I have no ability to take action, whether it be promotional or whether it be paying my bill on time.
yeah. And informational messages in a country I don't live, from an email that is non-responsive. Yeah, and so to me that is still in the area of doing cold calls. In my opinion, cold calls have very little effect. And how do you look at that? Do you see any benefits in making cold calls? Does that actually have a positive
It's,
commercial effect?
it still happens, but of course the impact is very low. Turning up the heat on a cold call is far more effective, and it doesn't take too much effort to do that.
Yeah,
It might involve asking for an introduction, asking someone who is connected to the organization or the specific person you're trying to engage with, for an introduction, and that's not very difficult. But it just takes a few extra steps, right? It's shortcutting. Um,
yeah,
but but there are some very good and impactful messages that go out in a cold space. But of course, it's much more effective if you're using digital, if you're using sort of various technology to reach out, and invite organizations, invite customers to come to you. And that's a far more impactful approach. And looking at some of the amazing marketing tactics there are these days, with various technology employed, um, tech, augmented reality, and all the various marketing uh, resources that have come to light as a result of what technology has brought to us is incredibly exciting. And changes the need to do as much of the cold calling, which nobody really enjoys. And of course, with tech on phones, there's also the screening that's happening too. So your success rate is very low.
yeah, yeah. Monique,
Fine, Nick.
I'm so
I
happy could solve your issues. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining.
I don't know what happened there. We were talking before and now
It's
suddenly it
it's
didn't.
Murphy. It's Murphy. I
So
think
apologies for the bad customer experience there.
no, I think this in the whole topic of customer experience. I think this makes a really interesting topic. Things can go wrong, and
Exactly.
that doesn't have to be deliberately. And since we talk about it, what do you think is an effective approach to engage with your customer if something does go wrong?
Okay. First of all, I think an apology is very effective if things go wrong. And then, yeah, make sure that the way you make up for whatever went wrong is satisfying. It doesn't have to be, you know, a big thing. You just need to. My approach is apology, get things sorted, make sure you deliver what's promised, even though it's a little bit later. But first of all, always an apology.
Yeah, and in my experience, proper attention makes a big difference. It's not
Yes.
about compensation. It's not about correct it and give the proper attention to your customer. Let people understand things can go wrong, and we sort it out, and we support you. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so easy to promise a voucher and make sure that the customer feels somehow financially compensated, but that's not the way to solve problems.
No,
And you need
I don't.
to listen and pick up the pieces from where you left it, and make sure the overall experience is correct.
Yeah, yeah. I started with the question in your absence about
Mhm.
Nikhil,
what the biggest challenges.
Can I just have a little stab at that one as well, please?
Come
Before you
again?
move can I just have a little response to
Yeah,
that
sure. Go
question you
ahead.
gave
Yeah.
Monique? As Monique was talking, I could really connect with what she's saying. But I also thought just how much you can gain insights, but just by just looking at your own personal life, your relationships at home, or your relationships when you are frustrated. And I think one of the most important things is just being heard. So if something does go wrong, ask good, smart, powerful questions, and then shut up and just let the customer explain everything. And yes, I've been there myself. I've been on the receiving end, and I've been one of those customers that are just blurting out and telling the full story. But I just want, I just want to be heard, and I think it's really, really important that you allow a customer to speak, and then you from that you can get gems. I'm in the world of commerce and helping organizations grow, and what's really important is in any sales engagement is that the salesperson does less of the talking. And I think I totally agree. The apology is good, but and also the transparency and the responsiveness. Um, Doing things quickly is sometimes better than getting it right.
Yeah, I would say that depends a little bit on the issue.
Mm.
Yeah, but I think one thing is really important. What you just said is being heard, being listened to. Yeah,
Yes.
and I know that for a fact that the challenges I had in my earlier years, I come from an engineering background, and we want to solve things. It is not so important to listen. We want to do something with the information, and that is at that moment not relevant. Being heard is far more important than trying to give a solution on the spot in certain scenarios. Yeah. Um, Challenges about customer engagement. That is where I started with Tim. So I will drop the same question to you, Monique. What, in your
Yeah.
opinion, what are really challenges companies are dealing with today in creating an actual meaningful customer engagement?
In my experience, and basically it's a day-to-day, week-to-week challenge everywhere, is to get alignment across an organization, what the customer objectives are, what customer engagement, what customer experience means, what do they want to achieve. It's so easy to say, I want to deliver better customer experience, but you need to make sure that across management and later also across the operational part of the organization, you are aligned on what you want to deliver. And these goals, once you set them for yourselves, are matched with your customer experiences. And this is so important because this is where it always goes wrong. Many customer experience or customer engagement initiatives are made on a are created on a department by department basis, individually, with different objectives, with different expectations, without a proper connection across initiatives. And those initiatives have a very high chance of failing because there is no overall customer strategy behind it. Yeah, so this is the biggest challenge, because as easy as it may sound, it's not easy to get this organizational alignment.
That is, I think, scaling and alignment is the biggest issue in most organizations,
Absolutely, yes.
from my experience. And I like it what you just said, because basically what you point out is that customer engagement is not just an operational issue. It
Yeah.
needs to be built in operations, in tactical approaches and strategic approaches to do that right. And I think what a lot of organizations maybe not even are conscious about or aware of is they do have a purpose. They do want to bring something into the market, and that is what they try to push without having the customer in mind. Yeah. That means they push and push and push, and digitization doesn't really help because that only gives you more channels to push. How 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 can we turn that around? How can we create in that approach a mechanism that there are proper feedback loops with our customers?
Shall I go first there? It's a very in-depth question.
I know, I'm aware of.
If we start from the beginning, so to get a strategic alignment, like an organizational alignment on what you want to do, you set the basis and you create statements or a customer manifest, and you create clear goals that the different departments that need to action things and improve things for the customer can actually work with. Yeah. Now, these individual action items or mini projects, they need to be managed properly from a like a program perspective, so that different departments keep on talking to each other, and there is somebody overviewing everything. So that's the basic the premise to which with which we need to start, to make everything work as expected. On the other hand, what you also need to do is make sure that there is a proper innovation and design process in place, because everything that you want to do needs to be tested. There needs to be somehow, for example, if you say, okay, I think the best thing for us to improve our customer experience is to change the way that the customer can purchase things online. That's fine. That you need a design process, a new user interface, a new user experience, but that needs to be designed also in a customer-centric way with input from the customer. So if your CX initiatives already exclude the customer at the design phase, then you will basically have blind shots in the air, and basically you're wasting your money. So this is the next challenge, I think, after the organizational alignment and the measurement, by the way, of what you're trying to do, is to make sure that everything that you design as a new process or as a new feature is properly tested with the customer expectation and feedback in mind.
And I know, so it's a challenging question that I asked, but I did it with a purpose, because I think it is really important for companies to understand that customer engagement is not a tool or a trick.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be intrinsic from the motivators and the initiatives in an organization to make that happen.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We see a lot of solutions in terms of technology coming into the market that helps us with creating omni-channels. We see several initiatives in digital transformation that is focusing on creating different business approaches in engaging with the customers. Not to mention all the tools that are coming available through AI. How is that disrupting the market? How is that impacting the customer engagement? And what are the most common pitfalls organizations run into in that scenario?
Should I have a crack at that one? I think there's a huge amount of value that's coming out of technology to be able to help really help organizations create an amazing customer experience, but it's not always done well. And I loved what Monique's answer was. I'm glad you didn't switch to me, because there wasn't much that I thought was untouched by Monique in her response. But I think if we look at what is happening in terms of technology at the moment, at each stage of the customer experience, the early stage all the way through to end of life cycle. There's the amount of touch points that are driven by technology is only increasing, and we're talking more and more about personalization at the moment, and how big data has done such an incredible job of helping to organizations to make more sense of the data they're capturing from the various technical sources and platforms that they're putting out there. As you said, multi-channel, omni-channel. There are different ways to engage as well, increasingly so, which requires a lot of management, a lot more effort to keep these all optimized and having the impact that they desire to have. And then there's automation as well, and we look at the early stage engagement with prospects and clients, how impactful marketing is now, but then how annoying it can be. I mean, that's you can disengage. It's a huge pitfall when you feel like you're in a process, a marketing process, and half the time you can sense that it's not even it's completely not humanized. It's completely technology driven on the back end, and when you get that sense, it just feels so insincere. And then of course, the various bots that we communicate with, and the frustration that we have with so many of these bots that really haven't been set up right, and we still can't get access to a human to help us when the bot isn't helping. So yeah, I think there's a hell of a lot, and I think the concern obviously is when we feel like we're being tracked. We feel like we are someone's ahead of us, and there's all sorts of scary stuff that obviously, having a conversation at home only to find out that you're being advertised something very, very similar just a little while later is just a classic example of just how scary things can be, and how sensitive people are to it. So I think if there can be a sense of humanizing the process, so that even if it is becoming fully automated, that there's a human feel to it, and it's just not so robotic. And then I think it's going to it can be really, really impactful, and sometimes it can be done well, but too often it just doesn't land.
Yeah, I totally agree. Humanizing the customer experience is a big topic. I just want to make a quick separation on technology that is customer facing, that the customer uses to interact with the customer, and the internal technology in an organization. Because before we go to the customer facing technology, a lot of times we cannot deliver seamless customer experience because our backbone technology is broken. And you see it with older companies, or with banks, with companies that are very slow in change, is that they've got these huge ERPs, very outdated CRM systems. They cannot do proper data mixing and merging to offer omni-channel experiences. And this is a big struggle on the one hand, where new companies born in the digital age are a lot more flexible. So they are a lot more agile in adapting to the customer experiences. This is a reality and that we have to take care of on the one hand, and on the other hand is the customer facing technology. And as you said, Tim, it's very important that we don't that we take into account the digital savviness of the customer. Some customer personas that we have for our brand or for our product might be super digital and might be going with the flow with whatever you throw at them technology wise, and others will have more difficulties to adapt. And there's a lot of companies and brands nowadays that only offer fully digital experiences, and without realizing they leave out part of their very valuable customer base. So these are also, apart from humanizing the experience, completely agree. These are other action points that we need to look at when we engage in a customer experience or a customer engagement project, because they in the end will cause a lot of problems, and they will cause a lot of deception about the objectives you set for yourselves.
So one experience I had, and this was with an airline. If I wanted to raise an issue, I was forced to create a Twitter account because there was no other way to communicate with them. Yeah, and I think that, and if you want to communicate, then the initiation was through Twitter, and the follow-up was through email. And that is a multi-channel, that is not an omni-channel. And so I like it the way that you separate it, because one part is indeed the customer-facing technology that you use, and the other part, which is a big holding back, is the legacy companies are dealing with in able to create the connection between the customer interfacing and the background processes in an organization. Yeah. I think one
And this
one
is,
thing.
sorry, this is a pretty serious thing, because if your data backbone fails, then you cannot even deliver functional experiences in the right way, which results in complaints and deceptions and customer churn. But these companies do expect many times to deliver wow experiences on the other hand, and you cannot start with delivering wow experience if your functional experiences are not proper. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, indeed. So I think that so AI, in my opinion, is still in its infancy, while some elements in AI are truly advanced. I think this is a topic that really will go into what we call Industry 5.0, where AI is supposed to be more a companion than a data-driven intelligence. Yeah, and I think we don't have enough data to understand consciousness and emotional intelligence in order to create proper learning models for a large language model to include that. So if I look at chatbots, indeed, what Tim said, it gives a bit of an automated approach. It's not personal. You're being forced into the process of the company you're dealing with, rather than having the feeling that you're being integrated into a service or an engagement. Yeah. And coming to that discussion, and I think this is driving towards emotional intelligence. How do we approach it, and how relevant is that in the whole customer engagement scenario?
Tim, you want to go first?
All right, I'll have a crack at that one. From an innovation and sort of a creativity perspective, you really can only succeed if you're really connecting with the customer. And I think emotional intelligence talks heavily towards many facets, but empathy being such an important one. And I think organizations that are empathetic are so much more likely to not so much second guess. They're going to validate, so they're going to qualify their customer portfolio, their customer base. They're going to engage with them. They're going to ask the right questions, so that they can make sure that each persona that they're working with, that they're serving, is getting the experience that they seek. To remain as a loyal customer or as a raving fan. So I think elements of emotional intelligence are so important, and I'm not quite sure why organizations are not fitting that into their process. I mean, I had an experience only earlier today with an automated electronic process, and my selection wasn't there, but there wasn't another option to cater for me. It was, you can only choose one of these four issues. How can you not appreciate that there are customers that have other needs that aren't catered for in your automated service menu drop down? I think there's in addition to, I think, yeah, I'll leave it at that and give Monica an opportunity to have a blast at that one.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if empathy and emotional intelligence is exactly the same, but definitely empathy is very important, especially for those areas of a brand, of an organization that are either customer facing or make important customer decisions. But we also need to take into account, whereas it's my opinion also from my experience of delivering trainings in customer experience and in the areas of empathy. Empathy can be taught, and you can practice it, and you can develop it further. Emotional intelligence, though, is a little bit more difficult. And sometimes we deal with people in an organization that have a level of emotional intelligence that you know that these people should not be customer facing or making customer relevant decisions, but that doesn't mean that they are not relevant for the organization. Yeah, so this is a very important thing that relates to training and relates to human resources in having the right people in the right seat, and having people having an active role in customer experience that have to have high skills in emotional intelligence and empathy. Making sure that you have the right people in the right place is another challenge in large customer experience projects, because not everything can be taught, but that doesn't mean that people that are not emotionally intelligent are not valuable for the end delivery of your experience. I'm not sure if I explained myself.
I think you got the point. I think what I relate to was my earlier experience in an organization that wanted to put specialists at the service desk just to be able to have a higher rate of first call resolution, as they call that. Unfortunately, the specialists were really good at their job, just not very good at the engagement. And they start asking questions where the user had no answer to. So what is your MAC address? What is your IP address? Because if you don't give it to me, I can't help you. And from a specialist perspective, that might make absolute sense. But from an emotional intelligence, indeed, what you said, there is no interaction in that discussion. Yeah.
But they are part of solving the problem, and this is exactly the point. Having the right people in the right place when it comes to customer touch points.
Yeah. We have tools that we used to use to identify customers, yeah, like empathy mapping, personas. However, how do you educate people in an organization that everybody actually is unique? And I can create customer demographies and customer containers with certain groups of people. Is that effective?
Yeah, it is. Because in an organization, you need to work with assumptions sometimes. You cannot really treat every single customer. Maybe when you have them on the phone and there is a direct interaction, then you can use all your empathy and do a one-to-one approach. But in your strategy building, in your process building, you just cannot physically take all the different types of customers in. So you have to somehow bundle them and make assumptions that for hopefully 80% of all the people that fall under your persona, you're doing the right thing. Yeah. And you need to measure this also on a persona by persona basis so you can adjust your customer personas on the go. And this is also important. It's not creating customer personas and the strategies with them is still very important, but you need to update them. And this is also an error that is regularly made. We create customer personas once, and then we just live with those, and we don't think about it anymore. Yeah, and then you will have a mismatch because the customer behaviors are changing, the customer interactions are, the customer expectations are changing. So then again, you're back with nothing.
Yeah, indeed. And I'm happy that you bring that up because staying relevant is absolutely crucial.
That's my slogan.
yeah. And but I think that a lot of organizations, well, we put in the effort, we've solved it. Let's move to a different problem. And that is not how customer engagement works. It's a continuous process to make sure that you maximize. And I think what you mentioned there, what I think what a lot of organizations forget, is to put the right measurement into place. Yeah, and in my opinion, customer satisfaction is a very, very empty metric to use. It tells something, but it doesn't tell enough. And if we go into that discussion, do you guys have any advice on where to think of when you start measuring customer satisfaction, customer engagement, customer interaction? It's
If,
an
if
in-depth question again, but there is
it's
an objective behind it.
it's such a tough one because you can it's very easy to overdo it, and it's also uh, uh, easy to miss as well. I think where there's a significant touch point, I think it's good to give customers the opportunity to give feedback. And of course, the feedback channels are very the responsiveness is typically very low, unless it's of an extreme. You've wowed them, or you've really underdelivered and upset them. So uh, I know many organizations that, as part of their process, automatically send out surveys, a quick survey at the end of every transaction. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure how effective that is. I think just having the opportunity to be contactable, I think is probably better than polling and seeking customer feedback. I think just having a channel where customers can at any point is far more valuable than making it at a certain point of an engagement.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. However, from a day-to-day, customer experience consultancy, and the questions that companies who invest in customer experience and customer engagement ask is, what is the return on investment of my customer experience initiatives? Because you have to answer these questions, you cannot avoid it. You need to measure, and you need to, even though some of the KPIs have little value and it depends on how you use them, you somehow have to make sure that they have a KPI dashboard that makes sense to measure the return of investment. It's an inevitable thing that everybody wants to have. They want to know the return on investment. Even if it's with KPIs such as customer satisfaction, such as NPS, that really don't add a lot of value for the customer. But companies they measure themselves and compare themselves with others through these sort of KPIs. So there is no way of avoiding them. Having said that, completely agree with Tim. You have to use them at the right moment, not at every interaction. You have to use them at those interactions that are relevant for your customer and for your customer experience. So try to, on the customer journey, pinpoint 2 or 3 touch points where you really want to capture feedback, not at all of them. All these things that need to be taken into account when you determine when you measure what. But the typical CX measures are unavoidable because people want numbers and want to see returns.
Yeah.
There's no other way.
I think, of course, you want to determine financial health, but if we look at concepts like balanced scorecard, we also realize that finance is not the only dimension we need to measure in. Yeah, and the background why I asked this question, and I hope I'm not being nasty with that one, but it reminds me back to a TED talk I listened to from Simon Sinek, who says, who do you give more attention? Your customer or the people internally in your organization that serve the customer?
Yeah.
So what do you want to measure? Because things like returns, customer satisfaction, they are things that are fairly easy to measure. How do you measure motivation? How do you measure engagement of your own employees? Because if you have not automated the process, they are the one who are the interfacing. And I think that that is a crucial element to keep in mind, because it's not just about external metrics. And you touched upon it, you both touched upon it, because It needs to start intrinsically, internally, from your strategy onwards, but they cannot just be external metrics. There need to be something internally that maximizes the motivation of creating a good engagement and interaction with your customer. And if that is not rewarded, here is the one thing that I've really learned. The way you measure people is highly influencing the way they behave. So with the wrong metrics, you get the wrong behavior. Yeah. And if you start...
Because
Yeah, go ahead, Monique. Jump in on that.
no, I absolutely agree. And I've just this morning I had a discussion with some colleagues about the return of investment of CX. Yeah. So if you think about the return of investment of CX, you basically have 3 areas of KPIs that you want to measure. You have your internal efficiency KPIs, you have your employee KPIs, you have your customer KPIs. And you need to find a balanced mix, because I said, I wish it didn't exist, but companies see customer engagement, customer experience as a cost, not as an investment.
Yeah.
And we have to live with that when we work in projects. So you need to somehow produce these figures, but indeed, you need to make sure that you do not only measure internal efficiency, but you also measure the customer efficiency. How efficient does the customer think you are? And also employee experience. So what does it mean for the employee to work with certain processes or systems? This is as important, and only in that mix you'll do a proper job in keeping everybody motivated, your top team, your employees, and your customers.
Yeah. I think we have covered a lot of things in this meeting, and every discussion lead to more questions, and I hope that also goes for the people that are joining us. If you want to give any advice to organizations if they looking at taking a different approach to customer experience, customer engagement, what would you advise? Where would organizations start to look at?
Yeah, different is an interesting terminology. Different, I guess we want to be different than the competition and stand out, no, and be relevant and be a relevant
differentiators,
be a relevant company for our customers. You need to think of emotion, empathy, being the best listener, so that you can react properly. You need to make sure that you have motivated employees. You need to make sure that you have an alignment on your customer strategy, and you need to make sure that you have the flexibility, the organizational flexibility to adapt to changes. And I think that is one of the most important ones. If we want to be relevant for our customers, and if we want to stay relevant, we need to be constantly looking and challenging what we're doing. And this is my big, advice to organizations, to also look at the way they function internally. Are they ready for customer engagement? Sometimes they're not ready yet. They first need to do other stuff.
Yeah, I think, thanks for bringing that up, because that brings me really to a topic about leadership. Yeah, in an organization that has a very autocratic approach, the people that need to engage with the customer, they follow orders that has been given to them, which in my opinion makes them highly ineffective to do that successfully. And when we talk about proper leadership principles, as a leader, I should motivate the people and listen to people, what enables them to be more effective in their job. And that is a massive cultural transformation for a lot of organizations I'm dealing with. Yeah, and we try to push that through agile concepts, digital transformation. Still, I think the biggest hurdle is the actual cultural transformation. It is not adoption to technology, uh, implementing of processes. It's a mindset and a cultural transformation that truly enables that. Yeah, and I think I just elaborate on the feedback you give on that one, Monique. But this is a really tough one, and this is not something that can be done on a Friday afternoon.
No. Tim, I think you know all about that too, no?
Yeah, I totally agree, Michiel. It's such a hot area that leads that has such a huge impact all the way through the organization, and it's it's sad how when not addressed, just how it cascades down through an organization and doesn't equip the people with the right a level of connection to customers. I think it's been touched on during the course of this discussion, the purpose and getting people aligned. I mean, that's such a huge important task of the leaders to convey the whole why are we doing this, and and get everybody on board, but get their involvement in it too. And I think the leadership bit gets a bit scary when it's top fed, it's top down, and you're not getting your employees bought into the process by enabling them. And I think when you do that, if you're an organization that does that, you can see such a huge transformation, because it's not their process, it's our process, and it's for our customers. And I think that's when it gets really quite lovely, and you get the warm fuzzy feeling of an organization getting it right.
Yeah, indeed.
Can I add quickly something, an observation that I see a lot? Leadership is absolutely important. Top leadership, in my experience, very often is very easily aligned on customer experience, and they buy into the topic if you can show the return on investment. The problem where it normally goes wrong, in my experience, in the projects I'm involved in, is in middle management, because they are usually forgotten when it comes to training on empathy or customer experience. It's all about the agents, it's all about the operational people, because we have training programs for the leaderships, we have training programs for everybody except for middle management. And they are stuck between objectives that they need to deliver to the company and the customer experience that they ask to deliver through their teams to the customer. It's a very, very overlooked group of employees in the organization that probably needs the same training and the same management programs as the top management, because they need the same capabilities in the end to filter down through the organization what is coming from the top leadership.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, Monique, because it is indeed, I have the same experience when we help organizations in cultural transformation or innovation. Senior management sees absolutely the need because they feel the pressure of the competition. Think about banking. They are extremely scared of digital banking initiatives, the traditional banks at least. The same happens with insurance. So senior management sees the necessity to drive it. They initiate programs for the employees to transform, and middle management still has the old same KPIs. So effectively, nothing happens, nothing changes. And exactly, a transformation is not at the bottom or at the top. It is throughout the whole organization, and nobody exempted in that discussion. Yeah. Thanks. I think that was a really rich comment on that one, Monique. Tim, any last words before we round up?
Oh wow. I think this is only going to become increasingly more important as buyers have more and more control in the process, in engaging organizations, and I think if an organization isn't taking this seriously, isn't putting functions in that are just really looking to transform or even evolve what they're already doing, and make it a permanent feature then of their attention at least, then I think there's that massive chance of just being irrelevant very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks
And
for
if
that.
I can have my last words building onto that, it's about the relevancy is crucial. Your customer needs to be able to say, I need this company, I need this brand because it's part of my life, and without it, I'm nothing. That's a bit dramatic, but that's what relevancy means. And that's what we need to aim for.
Yeah, and I think with that closing remark, Monique, I know a lot of organizations that would seriously need to relook at their purpose in what they bring into the market.
Mm.
Thanks for that. I think this was a great discussion. Thanks for your time. For audience, the people online, if you wish to connect any of us, yeah, feel free to use any of the QR codes. It will direct you directly to the LinkedIn accounts of Monique, Tim, or ourselves. Don't hesitate. Yeah, and this is not a sales discussion. Any question you have that you feel related to or that resonates with you, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks,
And
guys.
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks a
Monique.
million.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, take care, guys. See you. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.